I used to think death was the end, the final curtain after a lifetime of mistakes. But I was wrong. Death didn't kill me. It exposed me. When my heart stopped beating, there was no thunder, no blinding white light, no angels with outstretched wings. There was only darkness, vast, deep, and so silent that I could hear my thoughts echo like screams. I had no idea where I was. The space around me had no walls, no ceiling, and no sense of time. All that remained was me, not my body, but the real me. No makeup, no voice, no mask, just the raw, trembling, empty core of my being. I asked myself, is this hell? But then I realized, hell doesn't come from God. It's built from the very thoughts I once released into the world. I wasn't being punished. I was surrounded by the energy I had once put out. The times I looked down on others, the words I spoke that wounded, the nights I drank until I forgot who I was. All of it was back, taking shape, turning into sensation, cutting into me like blades. I was reliving everything, with no right to justify, no one to blame. And the most terrifying part? I understood why I deserved it. No one condemned me. I pronounced the sentence myself. I watched myself from the outside, as if my soul had split, one part observing, the other enduring. And I knew this wasn't judgment. This was the truth. Have you ever thought you were living right, or at least living a life with acceptable reasons? I used to think that way. I believed the hurt I caused others was justified because I'd been hurt too. I thought of myself as the victim. But in that darkness, no roles could stand. There was no right or wrong, only impact. And impact doesn't need a reason. It simply spreads, leaves its mark, and returns when you've run out of places to hide. I wish I could tell this story in order, step by step, but the soul doesn't move through time. It moves through truth. So if you're listening, forget the clock. My story didn't begin the day I died. It began the day I stopped loving myself, stopped believing I had worth, and slowly stopped truly living. Who was I before I died? I was a 30-year-old bartender, addicted to alcohol, had an abortion, and laughed in the faces of people who believed in God. I was an empty soul playing the role of someone strong. But in truth, I was just a girl who once dreamed of being held without conditions. And if you're hearing this now, maybe a part of you carries that same quiet dream. But how does someone like me, lost, flawed, once ready to end it all, get saved? Who heard me when I cried out in the dark, and why? Can you believe that a single moment of longing for real love could shift an entire soul? It was that very moment that lifted me from the pit and carried me to a place no sermon had ever prepared me for. A place where light had no shape, but it remembered everything. A place where I wasn't interrogated, but showed myself in 90 different versions. And that's when I understood. Every small choice we make creates a parallel reality. Before I died, I wasn't living. I was existing, drifting. Like a torn boat in an ocean of emotion, no oars, no direction. I woke up each morning without knowing why I was still breathing. I didn't drink because I liked it. I drank because being drunk meant I didn't have to face the real me. I laughed, I flirted with bar customers, wore a mask of indifference, but every time the door closed behind me, I was left with myself, and I was too loud to bear. I had an abortion, not because I didn't know it was a life, but because I didn't believe I was worthy of being a mother. I carried a deep well of unnamed guilt inside me. I never cried for that child, because if I did, I'd have to face the crushing truth that maybe I was a terrible person, and I couldn't survive that. So I lived behind excuses, hiding behind cold phrases like, I wasn't ready, I wasn't stable, I was too young. But the truth, I was afraid. Afraid of love, afraid of responsibility, afraid of commitment. Afraid that if someone ever truly loved me, they'd see who I was and leave. I had someone once, someone who tried to love me, but every time they got close, I destroyed it. I remember screaming at the last man who loved me, "You deserve someone better." It sounded noble, but it was just fear disguised as sacrifice. I couldn't handle kindness. Gentle eyes reminded me that deep down, I was still that child, desperate to be loved. I didn't believe in God. not because I was a bad person, but because I couldn't understand why an almighty being would let me go through all that. I didn't rebel against him. I just stopped searching. That was how I protected what little pride I had left. Every night after work, I sat alone in my cheap rented room, wearing worn-out heels, smudged lipstick, and carrying a wound with no name buried somewhere behind my ribs. I used to ask myself, would anyone even see me if I stopped pretending? And when the silence answered back, I'd pour another drink. I thought death came because of an accident, but now I know I died because I had lived too long in a body that no longer had a soul. The heart attack was just the final consequence. My soul had been crying out for a long time. But I, after holding my breath through so much pain, had learned how to ignore myself. And then it happened that night. No warning, no signs. I collapsed in a small bathroom, surrounded by the sound of running water and the scent of bleach. No loved ones, no final words. Just me, a racing heart, and a whisper I would later learn didn't come from me at all. It's time to see everything. But I had no idea that this seeing wouldn't happen in this world. It happened after I died, in a place where I didn't just witness the life I had lived, but all the versions of life I had never chosen. And it was those unseen lives that forever changed how I understood freedom, destiny, and love. I don't remember the exact moment my heart stopped. I only recall the strange and terrifying sensation that everything outside of me kept going while I slipped out of myself like a single thread being pulled from the final stitch. I didn't feel pain, but I felt lost. Loss of direction, of control, of connection. And then I fell. Not physically. I fell into a formless void. Not black, not white, not light, not darkness in any way you've ever known. It wasn't space. It was the absence of everything stretched into infinity. And the most horrifying part was, I was still conscious. I knew I existed, but there was nothing to hold on to. No body, no voice, no touch. I was nothing but raw thought. And that was when true hell began. You think hell is fire, demons, and screaming? It's not. Hell is where your thoughts become inescapable. Every time I had hated myself, that hate returned like smoke, wrapping around me, tightening, slowly, whispering, "You said you weren't worthy. Now you see, you were right." Every time I had hurt someone, I felt their pain as if it were mine. There was no one to blame, no angel to rescue me, just me and thousands of versions of me, all staring, all saying the same thing. We are everything you forgot, denied, and left behind. I became so afraid, I wanted to disappear. But I couldn't. I was a soul. I couldn't die again. I could only exist forever in this anguish. And then something inside me whispered, not in words, but in a feeling, if this is forever, then I'd rather not exist. I didn't know it at the time, but that was a cry for help. And somehow, the universe knew. Because in that very moment, just as that thought formed, a thin crack of light broke through the void. It wasn't blinding, it wasn't loud. It was a single thread of light, so faint, so gentle, but enough for me to know I had not been completely abandoned. That light seemed to hear the cracking of my soul. It didn't touch me with hands, but with emotion. The feeling was like being held by your mother when you were little, feverish, scared, and fragile. It said nothing, but you just knew you weren't going to die. I began to cry, not with tears, but with memories. All the moments I had longed to be loved, all the times I'd needed someone to ask if I was okay, every desperate wish that someone would stay, they came rushing in, crashing over me with the raw pain of a first wound reopened. And then I heard the first sound in that space. A voice. It wasn't loud or deep or commanding, but it carried a weight that made all the silence pause. I am here. Just 3 words, but they made the darkness shrink. From those 3 words, light began to spread. And from that light, I saw not a person, but a presence. a white golden energy that wrapped around me with total, unconditional acceptance. It didn't ask who I was. It didn't ask what I had done. It simply was. I can't say if it was God, Jesus, or the Creator, but I knew, without needing proof, that it was love. And this love needed no condition, no explanation, no apology. I wanted to dissolve into that light. I wanted to stay there forever. But something in my soul still stirred, as if it wasn't fully ready. So instead of pulling me in, the light gently led me elsewhere, to a place where I would be shown my entire life, not as a memory, but as truth. Every choice, every thought, every vibration I had ever sent out would be laid bare before me like a film I could not edit. I don't know how long I had drifted in that darkness. There was no time there, no days, no nights, only me alone, like a fallen leaf suspended in the void, no branch to cling to, no wind to carry me. You can't imagine what it's like to exist without a body, to be nothing but awareness. Every thought felt like a blade, slicing into me over and over. I didn't just remember my pain, I relived it. Every wrong turn, every act of denial, every time I turned away from love as it quietly approached, I felt them all again, as if for the first time. There was a moment when I remembered something so small, something I once dismissed without a second thought. I had walked past a homeless woman, her hand reaching out right in front of me, and I didn't even glance at her. I thought it was nothing. But in that realm, I felt her feelings of what it was like to be unseen, to be treated as if you were no longer human. And I felt how deeply that moment pierced her. I broke down, not because she blamed me, but because for the first time, my soul truly felt the consequence of a cold, indifferent gaze. Then I saw the children I once taught during a summer job at camp. I had always thought of myself as someone who inspired others. But now I was shown a moment when I scolded a child for not understanding a lesson, and the way he looked at me was the same way he looked at the parents who had walked away from him. I didn't remember that, but the soul remembers. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is too small. Everything leaves an imprint in the energetic field of the universe. Even the gentlest vibration sends out a ripple. I began to panic. If everything was recorded this way, did I still have a chance? Could I ever be forgiven? I had always seen myself as an average person, maybe even a good one by society standards. But in that place, there were no standards. Only the raw, unfiltered truth of the impact you leave on other souls. And then, just as I was about to collapse under the weight of shame and regret, the light returned. Not with a blinding flash, but with warmth. The kind of warmth you feel when you're shivering in the middle of a winter night and someone wraps a blanket around you. Not saying a word, not asking a thing, just holding you quietly. And I felt held, not by hand, but by presence. By an energy so tender, it made me want to surrender. Not from fear, but from love. It didn't ask me anything. It didn't judge. It didn't demand an explanation. It allowed me to feel the full weight of who I was, and then remained, stayed. All my life, I had secretly dreamed of someone who would stay with me, even if I wasn't perfect. And now, I was living that dream, but not with a person. With a presence so pure, so sacred, you couldn't help but believe it was divine. I don't know if it was God. I didn't need to know. Because in that moment, I felt known. I felt seen. I felt completely, utterly loved. The light didn't push me forward. It gently invited me, like a wordless whisper saying, "You've been brave enough to face the truth. Now you are worthy of seeing who you truly are." And so I was guided to a place no human language can fully describe. It wasn't heaven. It was more like a soul crossroads, a realm where I would meet beings that were not human, had no faces, and yet knew me more intimately than anyone I had ever walked beside in life. They didn't judge me. They revealed moments of my life not to condemn, but to help me learn from myself. I don't know how I arrived there. There were no footsteps, no path, no door that opened. And yet, suddenly, I was standing in a space that wasn't exactly a place and wasn't tied to any specific moment. It felt like a layer of consciousness, a dimension where every vibration became visible. There was no ceiling, no floor, yet I didn't fall. I was being held, as if that space knew how to receive a soul still trembling at the edges. Everything around me was light, but not blinding, not harsh. It was a light that could see into you. In front of me, beings began to appear, not clearly human in shape, yet I instantly recognized them as teachers. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't need to. The moment you step into that space, something within your soul remembers them, as if you'd met them in a childhood dream, in the eyes of a stranger who once pulled you from danger, in a lullaby whose singer you no longer recall. I called them the Soul Council. They stood or simply were around me in a circle of light. No one smiled, no one scolded. They existed in a presence of pure, non-judgmental compassion. And then, without a single word spoken, I began to see, not with my eyes, but with my mind. A soul pool appeared before me. Its surface was like water, but within it were living images, my life. From the first time I laughed as a child, to the first time I felt betrayed, the first time I told a lie, the first time I loved sincerely, the first time I denied who I truly was. Nothing skipped, nothing was edited. Everything unfolded simultaneously, as if every moment I had ever lived still existed, eternally suspended within the fabric of my soul. But what left me breathless wasn't just seeing myself. It was seeing the impact I had on others. Every time I caused pain, the light around the pool dimmed. Every time I made someone feel loved, it shimmered brighter. And the most radiant moments didn't come from grand achievements. Sometimes it was just a soft gaze, a hand reaching out at the right moment. And in that sacred space, I understood the soul doesn't record accomplishments. The soul remembers vibrations. I began to see the choices I once had but never took. The council didn't judge me. They simply pulled back another veil, revealing a reality where I saw myself in countless parallel versions. One version of me became a mother early on, full of strength and resolve. Another became a writer, publishing books that helped others heal. One version ended her life at 27. Another kept her child, raised them in poverty, yet lived surrounded by love. I stood in the middle of a vast ocean of lives I never lived, not to feel regret, but to understand. Every single choice, no matter how small, opens a doorway to a different dimension. Each version of me appeared like fragments of a living mosaic, floating in this soul space with no frames, no boundaries, but each one breathing in its rhythm. Every piece was a life I almost touched. One of us was poor, but rich in compassion. Another was famous, but unbearably lonely. One version died young in a car crash because of a phone call that lasted a few seconds too long. I saw myself in lives where I loved the right person, but abandoned my calling. And I saw a version of me who never had the abortion, who became a mother, but lived in fear for 10 years with an abusive partner. I thought I'd be overwhelmed. I thought I'd panic, seeing so many me's. But the strange and beautiful truth was I didn't judge any of them. I felt that each version of myself was worthy of love. Whether they chose right or wrong, whether they got lost or found their way, they were all part of the whole, and I was simply the conscious piece standing in the present. The council didn't ask me to choose. They only wanted me to understand. Everything has meaning. Every choice is a soul experience. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is discarded. Each path simply leads to a different kind of lesson. I no longer saw time as a straight line, but as a glowing web, an intricate lattice of light, where even the smallest decisions, like choosing to forgive or choosing to hold on to anger, split into new universes. I saw the version of me who accepted the proposal from the man I once left. She lived in a quiet suburb, had 2 children, and a kind husband, but her eyes always carried a trace of something missing. Then I saw another version, one who never let anyone close, who lived alone, but wrote books that healed millions. Her voice was low and steady. Her eyes sparkled with depth. She was powerful, but often sat alone for a very long time. And amid those countless lives, I was allowed to see the cost of every choice. There was no perfect path, but there was a path that allowed the soul to grow, exactly in alignment with the mission it was designed for long before birth. I didn't understand that with logic. I felt it, deep in my being. And that vibration moved through me so profoundly that even the heart I no longer had began to slow, overcome with awe. The council said nothing, but in their silence I felt a gentle question rise, soft as breath. Now, which life do you want to live? And then I saw an image that had never happened, a vision of me holding a small girl. She looked at me and smiled, saying nothing, but somehow her smile carried everything I had ever longed to hear. You came back to me, Mommy. I had never given birth, but that vision stirred something sacred in me, something I had buried long ago the day I walked away from the calling of motherhood. My soul wept, and this time the tears weren't born of guilt, but of hope. I didn't know if that little girl was real, but I knew I wanted to find the version of life that led me back to her. And in that moment, I understood something simple and radical. I could choose again, not with promises, but with the way I would live, with how I would return. And if I chose to go back, I would carry everything I had learned, not as someone who had died, but as someone who had just been born. And I heard it again, not with ears, but with certainty, like a wave of knowing from the council that moved as one. Life was never given to you so you could run from your mistakes. Life was given to you so you could learn how to return to love, no matter where you begin. I had never truly grasped what a second chance meant until I stood at the threshold of two eternities, to remain in the light forever, or to return to earth and live fully for the first time. And I chose to return, not because I feared death, but because I was finally ready to be loved the right way, starting with the way I would love myself. When I chose to return, the council didn't stop me. They didn't applaud either. They simply looked at me with a light so gentle it made me want to cry, because in that light I knew they saw everything I had ever been, and still they loved me completely. Before I left, they didn't give me a mission. They didn't offer instructions. There were no warnings. Instead, they imparted 5 lessons into my soul, not through words, but as if every atom of my being was touched by a wave of vibration so deep, so soft, it melted every last bit of resistance in me. The first lesson was forgiveness. Not the easy kind, not the kind you say just to sound spiritual. This was the kind of forgiveness that begins when you truly see another person in their fear and brokenness. I was shown a moment from my life when I had been betrayed. I remembered the pain, the rage. I had cut them out of my life completely. But now I was placed inside the feeling of the one who betrayed me. I felt their emptiness, their weakness, the quiet, gnawing despair that led them to do something wrong just to fill a void they couldn't even name. And suddenly, I no longer blamed them. I forgave not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to be free. Forgiveness didn't make me weak, it made me human again. I saw myself embracing the very person who had hurt me most, not because they had apologized, but because I finally understood they too were trying to love, just in a language twisted by pain. Forgiveness didn't erase the memory, it unchained me from it. It unhooked the emotional tether that had kept me bound to a story I never wanted to keep reliving. In that realm of light, I was no longer a victim. I was the one holding the key that could unlock the door of my soul. The second lesson was compassion. I was shown moments when I ignored someone who was hurting, not because I was cruel, but because I was too entangled in my pain. But I came to understand, pain isn't meant to be clutched, it's meant to be opened with mercy. I was shown how a single, well-timed embrace could stop a soul from ending their life, how one gentle word could turn the course of a destiny. And I realized I had always had that power, I had just never used it. Compassion begins with pausing to see, to listen, to be there. I had walked past so many people, not realizing they were thirsting for a kind look. I once called a child disrespectful, not knowing he had just lost his father. I snapped at a slow employee, never knowing she was battling depression. Compassion doesn't need to be dramatic. It only needs stillness to recognize when someone needs you, and courage enough not to turn away. The third lesson was faith, not religious belief, but the deep, quiet trust that life has order, intelligence, and meaning. That even when I can't see it, can't explain it, can't grasp it, there is a current greater than me, gently carrying me through every storm. I don't need to understand everything to believe. I just need to stand steady and love in the present moment. Faith isn't born from miracles. Faith itself is the miracle. I was shown a moment when I nearly gave up, when I almost made a decision I couldn't take back. But a single thought crossed my heart. Maybe it could be different. And that tiny seed saved me. We often think faith means waiting to see before we believe. But in the realm of the soul, I learned this truth. When you choose to believe without proof, you open the door for the impossible to become real. The fourth lesson was trust. I had always believed I needed to be in control, to plan everything, to know what was coming. But here I learned, when I try to control, I suffocate the miracle. I was shown moments when I had turned away from beautiful opportunities out of fear of the unknown. People I never opened up to because I was afraid of being hurt. And I finally understood trust doesn't mean waiting until fear disappears. It means choosing to love even while trembling. There's nothing wrong with feeling uncertain. The mistake is letting fear decide for you. I remembered standing at the edge of love, thinking, I don't deserve this. But if I had taken just one more step, the miracle would have begun. The counsel showed me, trust isn't believing that everything will go perfectly. It's believing that whatever comes, you will be able to receive it, and somehow it will be for your good. Letting go doesn't mean losing control. It means placing your hands into something far greater than your own. And then came the final lesson, unconditional love. I was shown a little girl, no one else but me, sobbing in a dark corner. No one was comforting her. No one reached out. Then my future self entered the scene, knelt and held her. She didn't try to fix her. She didn't say anything. She just held her and whispered in silence, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be here, and that's enough to be loved. That moment broke me open and put me back together. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I didn't need to be strong. I didn't need to run. I was home. Unconditional love. Not love because you behave, because you succeed, because you're beautiful or right. Just love. I saw myself as a messy little girl who had just broken her mother's favorite glass. I stood there shaking, waiting to be scolded. But instead of shouting, a pair of arms opened wide, wrapped around me, and whispered, it's okay. You matter more than the glass. And I wept. Because for the first time in my life, I believed I didn't have to do anything to be loved. I just had to be. No makeup, no achievements, no masks, just presence. Those lessons weren't written into my mind like words in a book. They were etched into my soul. I knew that once I returned to the physical world, I might forget much of this experience, but I would never forget the vibration. Like a seed, it would sleep deep within me and grow every time I chose love over fear. I thought I had come to that place to be judged, but I left with a far greater truth. We are not condemned. We are shown light so we can see how deeply we once dimmed our flame. And from that awareness, we are given the chance to choose again. Just before I returned to my body, I felt a gentle energy wrap around me, as if the entire universe was whispering, go in peace. But there was also a soft reminder. You will forget most of this when you return, but don't worry. As long as you love, you'll remember. And that became the promise I carried with me as my soul re-entered the body that no longer belonged to the old girl I once was, but to someone who now understood. The most sacred thing in this world is a heart that has been broken and still chooses to love. One more time. I opened my eyes to the beeping of machines and the harsh white lights of the ICU. The doctor looked stunned. Nurses rushed in. Someone shouted for backup. And me? I stayed silent. Not because I couldn't remember what had just happened, but because I could still hear the sound of the light. It hadn't left. It was still there, quiet, humming through every cell of my body, through the first breath I took, as if the universe had handed me a brand new heartbeat and whispered, this time,
What will you do with it? It took a while before I could speak again, but I didn't need words to start living differently. During that first week, I didn't say much, I just listened. The noises of the hospital, the groans, the sound of someone weeping in the room next door, the arguing voices of an elderly couple. Before, I would have turned away, but now I listened with the heart of someone who had just returned from the other side. And each sound was like a symphony of souls colliding, breaking, longing, but still trying to hold on to something we call love. When I went home to my old apartment, the same couch where I used to pass out drunk every night now felt like a memory that belonged to someone else. I didn't change everything overnight, but I began with one small thing. Each morning, I placed my hand over my heart and whispered, "I'm here. I accept you." That's how I started learning to love myself again, not when I had achieved something, but even while I was still relearning how to breathe. I began writing a journal. I wrote down everything I could remember, the unspoken conversations, the visions I had seen, the lessons no one ever taught me, but I still somehow knew. I didn't write to be known. I wrote so I wouldn't forget, so that if one day I lost my way again, I'd have a path back home. And little by little, others began to read. They wrote to me. They shared their pain, the times they too had come close to the end, and I realized I wasn't alone in this journey. We are all souls trying to find our way back to the light. Some of us just remember it more clearly, and some of us just need a single reminder. I didn't change the world, but I changed how I show up in it. I smile more. I apologize sooner. I stay quiet when winning doesn't matter. And I love not to keep anyone, but to light them up. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm real, and that, I've learned, is enough to live. Then, a few years later, I met a little girl. She's not my biological child, but the first time I held her in my arms, I saw something familiar in her eyes, a smile I somehow remembered, as if the universe whispered, "You remember me now." I don't tell people I once died. I simply say, I once forgot how to live. And now, I'm learning every single day. Through washing the dishes, saying I love you, placing my hand on my heart, forgiving someone who never apologized, or forgiving myself when I forget to love myself again.
If you're watching this video, I don't want you to admire me. I want you to remember yourself. Remember that you are light. You didn't come here to suffer. You came to awaken. Death isn't what we should fear. What's truly terrifying is living while forgetting who we are. And if some part of you has ever whispered, "Is it possible to start over?" then I'm here to tell you with all the certainty in my soul, yes, and it's never too late. But there's one last thing I haven't told you. Before I left the Soul Council, I was given one final question. A simple question, but I believe it's the very question every soul on earth must one day answer. You see, I used to think the Soul Council was only there to teach me what I needed to learn. But just before I left, just as the light began to fade, just as my soul prepared to fall back into my body, one of the beings, without speaking, sent me something deeper than words. A question, pulsing through my entire being with a force so profound it stopped time inside me. A single question, the one that still echoes through every choice I make. When will you finally let yourself be loved? It wasn't long, it wasn't vague, but it pierced straight to the core of my soul. It froze me in a moment outside of time. And even now, years after returning from death, though I've forgotten many details, many lights, many visions, have never forgotten that question. It was this: if you know you are light, then why do you keep living as if you are darkness? I didn't need to answer them, because that question wasn't meant to be answered right away. It was meant to be lived. Every day. Every choice. Every time you want to be angry, to run, to give up, to turn your face from love, it will return like a mirror for the soul. And let me tell you something strange. Since coming back, I've met so many people with the same look in their eyes. The look of someone who's walked through shadows, who's fallen, who's died a little inside, but is still here, still breathing, still searching for something more. Maybe you're one of them. And if you've ever felt small, broken, guilty, tired, or unworthy, I hope from the deepest place in my heart that you remember this. You don't have to wait for your heart to stop beating to realize you've always been light. You just have to stop running from it. The journey after a near-death experience isn't about death. It's about true life, the kind that begins the moment you dare to see yourself through the eyes of unconditional love. And if you're still here, reading, watching, listening, then you still have a chance. Not to start over from scratch, but to start again from who you are. At the beginning of this video, I asked you, do you believe there are versions of yourself out there living the life you once walked away from? Now, I ask you again, what will you choose today to move closer to that version? Because maybe, just maybe, that version of you, the best one you've ever imagined, is still waiting for you at the end of the road you haven't dared to walk yet.